Wonderful. Almost there. I'm going to go on Facebook and get everyone. All right. Hey, Facebook. We are getting ready. Hey, YouTube. How y'all doing? Let's go here to my page. It's always a thing. All right. And then I'm going to request you on live. It used to be so much easier to find.
Are you live on IG?
Yep, I just went live.
Okay.
All right. Hey, Instagram. Fancy seeing you all here. I feel like I just saw some of you yesterday. Welcome back. Hey, Carol B. Martin. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's see, put you all right here. How about that? Y'all want to sit right there? Does it work, Chef Cherie? What's up, Vera? Okay, there you go. Okay, go live with. I think I did that there. I don't hear myself in my ear, but maybe I won't hear myself until. Yep, it's not in my ear. Almost. Let me get rid of this echo for y'all. Let's try to come back.
I love it. Okay, can you hear me okay?
I can, but I think I'm giving them an echo because I haven't gotten it in my Bluetooth.
Oh, okay.
I don't hear an echo yet.
Oh, not yet? Okay.
She has a show called
Unladylike.
Yes, Vera. So, I was just there. Those were the dates that I gave you. So when I come back, you got to let me know the next time to come back so we can sync up. Okay. Did you already type? Hey, there it is. I'm about to pin it. Thank you, Anjave. All right. Almost ready with this Bluetooth over here. Oh, good. I know you can do it. There you go. Awesome. Well, you all, welcome. We are here. We are up to episode 9 of Dear Edward. And we are here. It's me, Shamika Cotton. I play Cora on Dear Edward, and you are tuned into Conscious Conversations. And I'm joined by my fabulous co-host, the Rev Cherie. Welcome.
Thank you. We are so excited to be back. I can't believe that we're getting to the end of the season already.
Yeah.
But it has been an absolute joy. I totally missed the presence of Miss Cora as we press on through here. But I think that, when you think about what draws you into a show, right? There's all of these different storylines, and you were a powerful jump off for one of our main characters in the story. So we're going to talk about Adriana and her run for Congress, which is coming to a conclusion next week. It looks like there's going to be in that, but it's just a joy to talk about TV, to celebrate your victories and in your work, and I'm excited. I'm excited about this show, and I'm excited about what's wrapping up. We're getting to see some storylines wrap up. I'm excited about that.
Some storylines are kind of the stakes are getting higher. We have more things being revealed.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're really kicking it up a notch as we are getting to the last episode of the season. So this episode was called Paper Covers Rock. And you all out there who have been watching and who watched this episode, we'd love for you to chime into the chat. Let us know what you thought about that title of the episode and how you thought it played out in the different stories. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that. We have some thoughts, but we would love to hear from you on that. So put it in the chat. Let's talk about it. But where do we begin? Where should we begin?
So we got to begin with Edward.
Okay.
I mean, so Edward, so this is this spoiler alert. All right. So if you are not up with episode 9, I think we're on now.
Mm-hmm.
9. So this is episode
It's
9. So
not.
if you have not watched episode 9, we're getting ready to spoil it for you. But I'm telling you, let it be spoiled. You're gonna enjoy the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But in episode 9, we pick up right after he has pushed the piano down the stairs of the school, basically destroyed the piano. And he's
Mm-hmm.
in the principal's office.
Yes.
And so the principal is asking him, why did you do this? Right.
Right.
And you can see that there's so much concern and compassion for him in this space. And Edward said the most interesting, yet as an adult, you just, what? He said, I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to see what it sounded like. What did you think about that? I wanted to hear what it sounded like.
I was like, did you want to hear did you want to hear the wood crashing, or did you just want to hear you know how you slam down on the piano? I was so curious, like, well, what part? Like, it didn't make sense. It was one of those things that makes you lean in and say, well, what do you mean? What were you expecting in the sound, or why did you want to hear the sound? Because what was the last one? With the last episode 8 was called music, right?
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
related to sound. So I thought that was well connected. But I think I had the reaction that a lot of people had, which was, what do you mean you wanted to hear what it sounded like?
But I as you asked the question, when you said wood crashing, right?
Okay, yeah.
That I think that his life was crashing around him. Maybe it was like he wanted to hear what he felt, right? Like his friend had just abandoned him. His uncle had moved out. It was like Mira had rejected him.
Yeah.
He was like, now he had nothing,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and his aunt was driving him crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's the sound he wanted to hear, was the crash that was going on inside of him. And of course, it makes sense in the sense that the piano will be the thing he wants to crash, because that's where the collision was happening in him. Is like he needed an outlet, but that piano is so tied up into Eddie.
Yeah.
It's so tied up into him as Eddie that I could see that, like, and also to have it be noise as opposed to music.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I could feel that. I think it's
That was
really I just feel so much for this kid, right? Like, and I'm the only thing that I wanted to punch the principal in no, I take that back. The principal did get on my nerve, but he at least mentioned therapy.
All right, can we pause for 1 second? We're gonna get back to that, but I just want to give a shout out to one of my we weren't classmates, but we all attended the same school in Cincinnati, the School for the Creative and Performing Arts. The principal was played by Alton Fitzgerald White. He is alumni from SCPA in Cincinnati. So not only do we have me on the show, we have Alton on the show, and then Zena Camblin is a writer on the show. So just giving a shout out to SCPA. For just producing talented people who are out here in the business, making it do what it do. Okay, go ahead and back and talk about the principal.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh. So what was really disappointing, that one, he said he was going to pair him with a therapist, but that he would expel him from the school. And the same conversation was like, so when you talk about the floor being pulled from underneath you, like, they are not putting Edward in a position to win.
Okay, I said it last week. I said, don't you think he's gonna get expelled? You can't be in school doing that. You can't get away. Like, that's almost worse than fighting. Like, you get expelled for fighting. You pushed a whole piano down the stairs, right?
And the principal called that out too. He said, you could have hurt somebody.
And then Edward, but his response was it was like, okay, that makes sense, but it's also a little troubling, right? Like, it was not meditated in a way, but it was very thoughtful. He said, I made sure there was no one on the stairs. Like, really,
so, like,
it wasn't
this was not
impulsive.
an accident. Yeah, it was a thoughtful decision. I wanted to do this. I did it. And I didn't stop myself when I thought somebody could get hurt. Like, yeah.
Right.
No, there are 16,562 different grounds for therapy in that one conversation.
Yes.
Like, so many points of, like, let's refer this kid. But my heart broke for him in this
Yeah.
episode because I could
Hmm.
feel how utterly alone he was in that moment,
That is
and that
definitely.
nobody would understand.
And that is definitely what I got from this entire episode was how alone he must feel. Like when
Mhm.
he left school, he went home, no one was there. At least it appeared like no one was there. We later find out that Linda was upstairs, but it just he just seems so alone and having such a hard time to connect. And I believe Toyette brought this up last week in the chat that John is what is his person, so to speak. And then with,
Mhm.
Lacey, well, him leaving, it kind of makes him feel like he's alone. So I really felt Edward's loneliness this week. So that was also very concerning. Um, but yeah, Toyette said that back to your question about the sound, that he wanted to drown out his thoughts and frustration with the sound. And
Mhm.
then what did Kwame said something that he to hear the crash or the noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting. I mean, let's stick with Edward for a minute. So we
Hmm.
follow him to where he jumps out the window. And here's the other thing, principal. You just expelled this kid and then you're gonna offer him some cake from the birthday.
That was weird. Anybody else? Give me some hearts and Instagram. Was that not weird? The
It was
cake. I was like, that was a
it
weird
was
line. Yeah,
It
it was
was,
weird.
and I know teachers who one of my Bible teachers, one of my first teachers, she would say that after we'd have these classes, we'd be talking about our own deep inner consciousness and all of that, and she would always go around and pass out a piece of candy. And she said, when you're dealing with the bitterness of the stuff in your
Mm.
subconscious mind, you need a little something sweet, right? So I felt it on that end, but it was like, ooh, but could you have waited till his aunt got there before you expelled him, like. And he said, "Oh, because you're so smart." But oh my God, like I said, he ripped his heart out, and then so he left and goes home, and he's alone, and or he thought he was alone. But there was a resignation, like you can see that he had just reached his end.
Hmm.
And what was beautiful about the moment that he heard the voice in the middle, I mean, he heard the moan in the middle of his music because he started blasting classical music. You saw how he froze though, like she said, call 911, and he started, and it's like this kid is so triggered right now that there was nothing he could do. There was nothing he could do but just stand there. Thank God
Yeah.
she had the energy to grab the phone from him,
Yeah.
and that was Linda. So Linda had been ill and was and actually in labor, and so he comes in and at the right time, to be able to
Hmm.
help her. So but that brings a really good point. So Anjave is one of your amazing interns, said
No, no, Anjave is a
that.
producer. She's not an
Oh,
intern. Sorry, to
producer,
be
she's
very clear.
producing.
Yeah, she's a
Okay, all
producer.
right.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, so come on, give me one of them Anjaves. Where you
Okay,
find that
everybody
info
wants an
at?
Anjave.
I mean, no wonder. I mean, not that interns don't have it going on. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
she's got that extra special secret sauce. But she
Yes.
brought up such a good point about endings and beginnings, right? So we saw that we got an ending to the story about him in school in some ways, right? He comes home. We see that him and Shay, that friendship has come to an end, at least in this iteration, because
Hmm.
has she returned the golf thing? I know he took it back, whatever it was, the thing he made for her.
I don't know if she returned it or that she just wasn't using it. Like I could have swore it was always outside.
Yeah, I just feel like he
Was it
got fed
not
up with
always
the whole
outside?
thing.
What? Yeah, nobody is there for him. She's not
Yeah.
there. Yeah, and I think that it was an end. He's putting it away.
Mhm. Mhm. So something for sure I think is interesting. Like, I mean, we can see that there's going to be a beginning, and just to, again, to follow Edward's story through,
Hmm.
um that he ended up being, so you can see how, I don't know if I was triggered while he was in the hospital with Linda, and having flashbacks to the crash with his family and remembering the fear. So that fear was triggering him, and he remembered the fear of before they went down. So tell me, like, what I thought about is like, when are you walking through life, right, completely triggered? Like you're not exactly having the current experience you're having. You're just triggered and you're walking in a memory almost like I think it definitely, like I said, this whole thing just made me want to hug this child and rush him
Yes.
to therapy. But it also made me think about that idea of being triggered and not in the moment though.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like not completely not in the moment. But thankfully, he was able to, everything worked together. He got into the ambulance and he's in the ambulance. And I'm just thinking of like watching this scene happen where he's seeing her in pain and what sounds did he hear when he was on that plane, he heard and could feel the fear with his family, but it was like all of those things, the engine and the sirens and all of that was just, like I said, I was triggered by it.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Um,
You mentioned like what you just said about walking through life triggered, and what I think about is the times that we are walking through life where we don't know that we're still walking with our trauma very much on at the forefront or on the surface, and it's not
Mhm.
until something happens where our response doesn't match what is actually happening. That's when you know that you're triggered, right? And so I feel like his response at that moment, because he was so traumatized, it didn't match, like what you would expect to do when someone says call 911.
Right.
That's when the trigger and the trauma kind of blows up, right? So I definitely could see that is something that we face, when we're walking around with unhealed wounds or trauma that we haven't dealt with, especially
Yeah.
walking around with maybe PTSD. You think that you're okay. And of course, you're probably making decisions that don't necessarily make sense. Like, I want to hear how the piano sounds or jumping out windows, right? Those are little things that are kind of like little red flags. But the real one is when you have that trigger in the moment of something
Yeah.
that's happening.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and not to say that we can control the triggers, right? Sometimes we don't
Right.
know that we even have a button there to be pushed. We don't know that there's
Mm.
a switch to be flicked, right? But sometimes we do know, right? We do
Mm.
know that we are not dealing with some of the challenges in our lives. We just keep stuffing them down, and so we're just primed for the one thing to happen. There was there's after Dear Edward went off, another show came on, and it was a similar thing with a character that was walking around being triggered all the time. You think about the one, you stepped on my shoe and now we have to fight, and because whatever that anger, whatever that unresolved anger is sitting right
Mhm.
there on the surface. And so that's like a little check-in point, is to think about like what is sitting there on the surface. I have a book. I'm not gonna name the title because it's my book. But there's a concept that I'm working with, which is about living at that level of trigger, living where everything sets you off into where you're out of your mind, where you're out of your true self. And how
Mm.
do we get off of living at that space of just being so triggered by everything? And so there are practices you can do, but you have to be willing to go into the dark, right? you know um if you know that you are a light bringer, if you know that you're one who brings the light, and that it is okay for you to go into the darkness and pull out, like, it's like to go redeem yourself out of the darkness. And that's what we have to do with some of our past memories. We have to go and we have to go be the light in there, go get it and bring it out, and not be afraid that we're going to get lost in it. And so the way you do that is you have to fortify yourself with who you really are, right?
Mm.
You have to fortify yourself with who you really are. And we do that through, it's going to sound so basic, but we do that through prayer. We
Okay.
do that through surrounding ourselves with good people. We do that
Mm.
through some introspective work. Who am I? What am I here for? And I would say that if you have not found spiritual community, right? Because I said surround yourself with good people, but it's also like not just your sports buddies, right? Those could be good people. We all cheer for the same team and we bring the right snacks. But if we're talking about this idea of I want to be in a healing space, I want to go to where healing happens, right? Where's a space prime for heal? So finding a spiritual community is so important, because somebody can give you back in such a loving way things you may not even been able to see in yourself. You know, I'm curious about why you push the piano down the stairs to hear the sound. Like, that's not typical of what one does when one wants to hear a sound. Like, it's just like you could be doing things that are completely bizarre and out of your character and be unaware of it because you don't have a community around that lovingly supports your spiritual growth. So I'm a strong believer in finding your community. I see Terry says, she says hand pink waving.
So I
Hand
think
pink
that's when you
waving.
put like a emoji in there, and so it's a hand and it's pink and it's that one, right?
Got it.
So
Got
yeah,
it.
in the
Got it.
nutshell.
Yeah, got it.
Would you say
So
that the
yeah.
grief counseling community is also a form of maybe wellness community? Because
Well, I mean, so
or is it
just
different?
jumping to that and Anjave's amazing insight into endings and beginnings, because the airline is finished paying for the grief counseling, and so that
Yeah.
experience is coming to an end, and you could hear her crying through the question of like, but we need each other, you know, and she wants to do a farewell party, but that community has become a connection of spirits who are working to heal. It has become a healing space. So when I say spiritual community, I don't mean it has to be your church, right? Like that's one of the places that I find spiritual community, but I have spiritual community in other places too. So it is but that how important it is to our soul's growth, I cannot underestimate. If you think you got to go at this thing alone, if you think I got to figure it out on my own and you know, it's just me and God. Well, I mean, there's a season for that. There's a season for just me and God, but we grow in community. If we were supposed to be by ourselves, all of this desire to connect wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be designed to be together. We wouldn't be attracted to build together. And so it's just, again, if you haven't found one, just begin to think about it. Begin to let it roll around in your mind. You'd be surprised at how it's going to start. You're going to start seeing opportunities pop up just by entertaining the thought about it.
Wow. What do you think about, like, okay, because somebody might be like, okay, I'm not triggered. Everybody just getting on my nerves. These people just irritating me, right? And so you start to feel like, well, it's not me. Is everybody else, right? Or you feel like it's normal to always be mad and irritated about something, but that's not the normal. The normal is to feel good.
Absolutely. I mean, but I really believe that even the person that has that kind of level of crankiness and that everybody's doing stuff to me to bother me, you know, we all come to ourselves at some point, right? And you just can't let those moments get by you. Sometimes we come to ourselves. I don't know if you ever had a major revelation, you felt something deep in your soul, but you didn't sit with it. You didn't hold on to it. You didn't write it down. And it just kind of, the moment passes, you know, and you move on, and now you're back into your old patterns and your old ways of being. But we all come to ourselves, and we just have to be willing to listen to that direction. Because in scripture, when the man with the lost son, prodigal son, whichever way you want to name him, but when he came to himself, he started getting direction, and then he obeyed the direction, right? So we have to do that same thing when we come to ourselves. So there's a point when you realize it can't be everybody in the world against me. Somebody may do something extraordinarily kind, and you're like, so kindness does happen to me. Like, that's a come to myself moment, that I went from things starting to happen to me to, wait a minute, or maybe I made a decision about something contrary to the decisions I would usually make. Toy says you have to learn mindfulness. Yeah, I mean, we got to grow up, right? I'm saying a lot of things to say, we got to grow up. And we can't keep walking around with our kindergarten ways of being and expect to have these powerful, amazing, dynamic experiences where we get to experience the fullness of love and peace and joy. You got to grow up. You got to take care of yourself.
Yeah. On Instagram, Pop Duke 456 says it's a purpose and plan that's not of our own planning.
It's a purpose and plan that's not of our own planning. You have to tell me some more about that. I would
Yeah,
love
what
to
was that
hear about
pop
that.
do? Come over to youtube.com/Shamika Chronicles and let us know more about what you meant with that comment. Come on over
Mhm.
and chat, join us in the chat. And anybody on Instagram, come on over to youtube.com/Shamika Chronicles and you can join the chat and we can talk back. And we would love to have you in this conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm.
So let's talk Dee Dee in the grief group and Dee Dee, Dee Dee,
Okay.
Dee Dee.
Hmm.
So Dee Dee. Um, so Dee Dee breaks my heart and makes me mad too. They all get into my feelings. But it was when she went to the counselor, to the
Yes.
therapist's office,
Hmm.
and you could see that Dee Dee is so trapped in her own world that she didn't even realize this guy had his own life. Like, oh my, like
Yeah.
she was shocked that he had a practice, shocked that he had other patients. Like he had become hers. You know what I mean? Like that was so interesting. But the fact that the group is ending, and for someone who you would think she was so honest about the value that she was getting out of being with everyone and
Hmm.
wanting to throw that party and talking about endings and beginnings, right? So that
Yeah.
the grief group is ending. The other end, right, was her daughter's ignorance about her dad, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
When
Zoe no longer is, I mean, as horrible as she was last week, she got a big fat dose of the truth, you know, and
Mhm.
that, you know, and I couldn't think of a more awkward place to do it, right? Like right in front of her buddies, but it came out so honestly from her and lovingly, like to say, hey, wait a minute, your dad was exploring, you know, he had a friend, he had another life, you know,
Mhm.
and it was just the way that it came out, you can see there Zoe was like what, you know, but then she offered her, hey, come with me because I've been healing in this space. Like it was such a whole moment for Dee Dee, I thought, in that space
Yeah.
where she gave it. What did you think about that?
I thought it was it redeemed her because I felt like of course she had already had moments where she came to herself, but she was able to say, you know, me and your dad kind of messed up and we were so focused on
Mhm.
ourselves that we didn't create a space where we could really focus on you and help you to be able to be able to connect with your parents and have a
Yeah.
conversation, right? I was really nervous though when she was in there having the first of all, the daughter was like, basically, "Mom, get out." And I was like, "Okay, all right, we doing that? Okay." But but then
Things
so
I could never
Didi,
get away with. Number
okay, first of
16.
all, that part, right? Okay. But then as Didi was going on and letting her know about what their family was really up against and about her father, I was like, but Didi, her friends right there, are you sure you want her friends to know all of her
Yeah,
business? But then again, I was like, that's good because she's gonna have her friends to help her process everything that
yeah,
her mom just
yeah.
said. And I really loved that Didi said, I'm sorry for going off on you to the other friend, right? Like I mean, and
She's still Dee Dee.
yeah, she's still
She's
Dee.
still Dee Dee. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
still Dee Dee all over the place.
Mhm.
Terry says she is innocent in her own right. Yeah. And she knows how to, I agree, Kwame. She knows how to face a hard situation because she's dealing with all the hard things, right? She's
Yeah.
dealing like that. That's the thing is that to me, that was the ending of the hard things that she had to do, right? Like she already is selling the house. She's went and,
Mhm.
and dealt with the apartment. She went to deal with the grief group. Angela,
Yeah.
you're brilliant. And she also had to deal with this was the last thing I had to tell my daughter what's really going on, you
Mhm.
know. And you know, one of my little my little sayings I've been saying a lot lately is that I said it today to someone who was quitting their job that you
Mhm.
can do hard things. You can do
Oh,
hard
yeah.
things. And so
Mhm.
Dee Dee is the epitome of you can do hard things. And sometimes
Mhm.
it's graceful and sometimes it's gritty, but you can do hard things. And so I just, yeah, I definitely was like I said she gets me and then she gets me back in, like, come on, Dee
Mhm.
Dee, come on. So yeah, that this group has been such a healing space for her, and I love
Mhm.
that she was vulnerable enough to share that out loud. Like it wasn't like a secret thing in there. Yeah, yeah, Toy, I agree. I felt sad for her too, losing the group. I got a feeling though that they're gonna pull this thing through. I
They're going to
predict
pull what through, like have
that
continue the group.
somehow this group is not going to end. I don't know how, but I just got a feeling that somehow
Yeah.
that actual circle is not going to end. It's going to stay on. It's not going to break.
They'll
That's
stay
my prediction.
connected in some way. But I love how the
No, I don't
therapist.
think just
Oh,
connected. I think
oh, you think it's oh
actual
really?
group.
Okay. So they're going to hire the counselor to say, we want to hire you to continue to be our therapist, because the airline ain't paying for it no more. The airline done paying
But that's
for it.
the thing, though. That's the thing, though. We were talking about this in our Lenten, one of the days. I don't know if it's today or another day,
Hmm.
but sometimes you don't know how things are going to play out, right?
All the time. You don't know.
You don't know
Hmm.
how things are going to play out. So I just think it could be all kind of different ways that you get what you want. Um, and she seems to be like, we got to celebrate the end of this. But I was like, I don't think it's the end. And even the therapist was like it's a shame, right? You
Yeah.
know, that it's ending this way. So I don't know if it's
Hmm.
the money. She did take the money from cupcakes, though. Like she asked for it. Like,
Hmm.
let me just recognize that I'm on a budget. Let me recognize I'm on a budget. Do you have money for discretionary spends? I love her for that. I love her for
Yeah.
that.
Um,
So wait a minute, we didn't talk
Go ahead.
about the
Yes.
most titillating part of the
Okay.
series
Shall
so
we?
far. Sienna finds some very provocative photos on her husband's cell phone, which must be the greatest fear. If a woman has a fear of
Yeah.
her husband, that might be one of them, right?
I'm
Is
so
once
sorry to
you find,
laugh. It's my messy side. It's like my when I'm watching TV and I'm like, oh, look at that mess, right? I'm laughing at the fact that it's a TV show, that mess. But in real life, no, I don't want it to happen. But in this TV,
yeah.
I'm just like, oh, this is a mess.
Right. How is it? Yeah,
Right?
because
Ooh,
and it was, so here's the thing. I was curious if she was going to confront him.
good for
I think
her.
I said that last week. Was she even going to confront him, or was she going to hold on to it? You know how it is when we don't want to have
Hmm.
a life-changing conversation, right? Like
Yes.
that conversation was life-changing right there. And she chose to say, hey, wait a minute, what are these pictures about?
Right.
And I don't know what did you think about
Mm.
Sam's response?
I felt so sorry for Sam though, even though I know it's a mess and I'm just like, oh, this is a mess. But I felt bad for Sam. I felt like she was asking him to give her answers that he doesn't have the answers to right now. He doesn't know. Like she wanted him to say, I need to know if you're ever going to want to be with other people, specifically men, in this marriage. How does he know? He hasn't really processed it himself, right? It's
Mhm,
just now
mhm.
coming back up into his awareness or consciousness, right? Since Ben died. So I felt bad. I felt like he was really lost. He's really torn and he doesn't really know what to say. But that's how I felt about Sam. How'd you feel?
I'm on Team Sienna. Like my girl was
See, I
super
knew it.
clear. She
Okay.
was super clear. She was like,
Mhm.
look, I get that this is something you've been dealing with, right? I want to be married. I want us to be together. I still love you, but you got to promise me that that this is over, right? And I think that was her now whether he agrees to that or not, we'll see. But at least she was clear about what she wanted. I like that because it's difficult. Like that's a very vulnerable place, and
Mhm.
to believe him because on some level she had to believe that what he was saying, right? Really was that he really was hadn't acted on the impulses, and that other than with what's his friend's name, the childhood friend,
Ben.
Ben,
Hmm.
other than with Ben. And so I but I'm also for people figuring out like the most courageous thing he could do would probably be to take a break from the marriage,
Yes,
right?
that's
To deal with
exactly what needs
himself.
to happen.
Yeah, and not to drag her through his discovery process.
Right. But is
Yeah,
she open to that? And the thing is, if he senses that she's not open to that, he may be too afraid to say that and decide to stick with it, even though he's still trying to figure
yeah,
it out. And that's the
yeah,
thing. It has to be like, can we have this conversation from a space where you really, truly love me and want the best for me, despite how it might affect you? Right.
right.
And she can't have that. And I get it. I totally get it. She can't really have that conversation right now. Right now, she's all about she's okay, and
Yeah.
she's all about, and I get it. She's all about her, and of course, and the child, but really, still, it's really about her getting security from him that he will be what she needs him to be for her, as opposed to, ooh, I kind of had some feelings beforehand because she said she
Right.
did, right? So you already know the answer to this. So you're trying to get him to give you some answer that's going to make you feel good and silence the thoughts you already had. So yeah, I don't think she's giving him that space to be open to say, I think we need to take a break.
Yeah, no, she didn't think it all the way through, but I think that she thought her through her feelings, which is
For
that I
sure.
still want him,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And
Okay.
sometimes I think that we can be in conversation with people in disagreement. We got a disagreement going on, and we're too afraid to just say what we want, right? We're
Hmm.
too afraid to just like, look, I still want to be with you, right? Or I still want whatever. I still want this relationship to work. And we're
Hmm.
just kind of bouncing off our ideas, trying to. But I like that she just stated what she wanted. There was something else that happened in that conversation. Because I think that, like I said, I think that oh, here it is. So we saw the ending, right? I'm
Which
telling you, she
part?
caught the whole thing. The ending was the ending of his secrecy,
Oh yeah, for sure.
right?
Yes.
The
Yes.
ending of his secrecy, the ending of her ignorance.
Hmm.
And now whatever comes next, right? That they got to come from a place now where at least the secret's out the bag. And I know that, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where some lie you've told has now come to the light. Confession
Whew.
session. I have told a lie before that has come into the
Hmm.
light.
Hmm.
And though embarrassment was there and shame was there, so was relief. Like
Yes.
it is out, and I can, like, now I can just deal, like, now instead of dealing with it on the inside, like I've been dealing with it, I could deal with it on the outside,
Yeah.
and deal with this thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, trust is broken, toy. That is absolutely it. Like, right, it is. And I'm telling you that I could see the relief in his eyes. I don't know why
Yeah.
that popped out at
Hmm.
me, but I could see that she knew. And as he's dealing with it in the moment, it's out. I don't know. I mean, sometimes it is. I don't know. I'm not encouraging you all to go and reveal your secrets and tell things that you go and be a truth teller to things you've lied about before. But I'm telling you, there was something about the freedom in his eyes when it was all out there. And sometimes it is just deal with it
Yeah.
in a loving way, right? In a loving
Hmm.
way.
It's brought to the light
Um,
now.
yeah. He loves her but desires men. That's the truth. That's the truth. And she's going to have to live with that. Even if they stay together,
But
like
he
she's
might
got to
not
live with
only
that.
desire men. He could be bi. We don't know. He doesn't really know.
But I think that the idea that you could, so I'm not completely literate
Hmm.
in all of the various facets of
Okay.
the LGBTQIA community,
Hmm.
but I do know that there are some times when we think about the idea that you could be attracted to men and women as also being that I could also be free to not be in a relationship that I've committed to.
True.
Like, so
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
fact that he's having this attraction, it would be like someone who's cisgender having an attraction to the opposite sex, but they're in a committed relationship. At what point does your commitment and
Right.
to what you agreed to come in? Right. If you
Right.
haven't agreed to an open relationship with someone, then and you agreed that we're in this relationship committed, our marriage looks like this. And if you don't have a conversation to change that agreement, it doesn't matter who you're attracted to, whether it's the same sex
Hmm.
or a different sex. So
Right.
yeah,
She just wants to know if he's still committed to this marriage. Because
yeah.
whether or not he says he's going to be, if he's still going to entertain the thoughts of being with men, what if it's a woman? Right? You just want to make sure your marriage is secure, but it's
Mhm.
shocking that now it could also be a man.
Yeah. Ooh, Sienna. Good
Oh,
luck,
bless
girl.
bless her heart.
Good luck,
Bless her heart.
girl.
You can make it though, Sienna. You got this. You got get it
Yeah.
community. You don't need
Yeah.
one. Mhm.
Oh, I know. I couldn't even, I know that marriages and marriages and then deep relationships are very
Mhm.
complicated, right? It's a lot
Mhm.
of layers. And but I'm curious to see how they play this one out. Um But I think that I think no matter what, they got to separate. He's got to figure himself out. He needs some room to be able to make a
Mhm.
decision. And sometimes you got to lose something, right, to really know its value. So,
Yeah.
that may be the road he has to walk.
Mhm.
That may be the
Just
road he has to
for a
walk.
little bit. Mhm. That's what I think.
Speaking of losing something,
Where are we going? Who?
my very, very favorite couple. They're my favorite
Oh,
ones.
yeah, okay, your favorite couple. I
Adriana
was
and
like,
Kojo.
yeah, let me tell y'all, these writers wrote the heck out of this storyline, especially with the whole fantasy and the folklore aspect from episode 7, and then now writing the story at the end of how he explained the fairy tale of living in Accra. They wrote the heck out of that. Somebody really loves fairy tales and romance because it was beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. So you saw it all. Like she's doing better in the polls. Like her life is on the upswing,
Mm.
but the love of her life is getting ready to move halfway around the world.
Okay, pause, pause, pause.
Uh-huh.
Is it really the love of her life? Okay, come on. Can we? They
I
just
don't know.
had
What
still.
you think? What was the Reverend's name? You think the Reverend's the love of her life?
I don't think he the love of her life either. I'm for neither one of them. Girl, you just getting started in your career in life. Ain't you don't got time to be having love of your life.
But okay, so wait. Time out. Okay. So did you catch the scene
Oh, which one?
where she was having a flashback of her grandmother
Right. And I'm
in the
confused
middle
by
of a
it.
party
Yes.
all alone?
Hmm.
So it is
Oh,
not,
that's what that was.
yes.
Terry, we couldn't figure it out. We were like, I don't understand why they showed that at that moment. It was
Right.
that
Because she's
she's
in
all
the house.
alone.
As a little girl, she remembered a party at her grandmother's house, and that everybody's coupled up and laughing. Her grandmother is separate, alone, looking out the window, sad. And she had said that
Okay.
her grandmother had sacrificed everything and was by
Hmm.
herself, was lonely at the end, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I now thank you
So
for making that scene make sense. Thank you.
yeah. I think that because I think that's what compelled her to go run after him, right? Let me go
Hmm.
and run after him.
Okay.
Angeve said the love of her life to date. Absolutely. That's the current. Listen, any love of your life is the love of your life to date, right? Like,
Yeah. True. True. True.
but yeah, that's so funny. So, but I just
Okay.
thought it was so beautiful, and I think that what I have been thinking about, this was an aha in the scene, that I have been
Hmm.
thinking that he wants. No, not even about him. This was really
Okay.
about Bex. I have been thinking about Bex being taken away from everything that she knew, right? That she's being taken from Adriana. She's being taken from the city she knows, the people she knows, even the dialect and the language that she is accustomed to hearing, to go to this foreign place. But that scene when he painted the picture of his home was like, look at where she's going to. Like, it was the first time I had looked at it from that point of view, that sometimes we're so backwards facing
Hmm.
that we don't turn to see the opportunity. We're just looking at what's changing, what we're losing, and not to see the possibility and the beauty of what's to come. And that picture he painted, and they looked at the house, and you see the family coming around, and it's like I could see her running around with her cousins, and something she didn't have in New York,
Yeah.
you know?
Hmm.
And so yeah, she's lost her mother, but she's gonna have aunties and a grandmother and a community that's wrapped around her.
Yeah.
Like it just gave me such a little joy about her. Though I too think that she needs some therapy. I just want to make sure I repeat that every
Yeah.
week.
Hmm.
But that was a flip for me this time.
Yeah. It's very interesting because I did not see it from Beck's perspective. All I saw was him telling the story for the sake of Adriana to see what she could come to. But now, when I look at that picture that he painted so beautifully, yes, it does give me peace and just excitement to see the world that awaits Beck. I thought he was just like, so Adriana, you can come to this world where you go live in this house with all these people. And I'm like, I'm an American girl. That's too many people in my house. I'm gonna need more than a room. But I do like how you put it in perspective for Bex. But yeah, it was beautiful. Absolutely
Yeah, it was a
beautiful.
beautiful, beautiful. I mean, first it was just beautiful, just the the
Oh,
let me show you my country on your hand. Like that was just romantic.
I've never seen
But
that before like that idea.
yeah, I just thought about her because that's the hardest part about like him leaving was always to me that like you're taking her from what she knows. And, this girl has had her life, kind of all of them, right? So
Yeah.
the ending of her time in New York. And so I don't know how the story is going to play out, right? I feel like somehow this love story is not over. Um, does she win and stay and he comes back? Like I just don't have no idea how it's going to play out. But I do know that I'm not as like I kind of opened up to to him leaving with her because
Yeah.
I see that there is like he's not punishing her or being selfish. It's like I'm taking her home,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah. I was so concerned though, when we thought that she wasn't going to make it, when Bex left her the picture that she colored and stuff, because I was just like, oh my gosh, if she doesn't show up to say goodbye to Bex, this little girl is going to go through life possibly having intimacy issues, thinking that everyone
Mhm.
she
Mhm.
loves leaves her in
Yeah,
some
leaves
way,
her. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh God, thank you that that's not going to be another thing that she has to talk about on her therapist couch."
Yeah.
But how much was that not a boss move that Adriana did? I was so scared. I
Yeah.
was like, "What's happening?" But that was a boss move.
Yeah, I love listen, use your connections. I love
Yeah,
that. And let's
that was
say, listen, if you are a friend that can hook up a friend for a romantic encounter, I want you to
yeah.
do that.
Hmm.
Okay. I mean, don't risk your job, but do it.
Yes.
It was so beautiful. Yeah, he just is he's an interesting guy. I like him. I like that he is trying to understand the woman that he has fallen in love with. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And even in the space of like he wants her to win, right? Even though winning is probably going to create more distance between them. Like it's as even as she was going and he's watching the debates and all of that, it was like you can see that this is a different world that he's not a part of. Different kingdoms, like they were when they were having the other fantasy story. So yeah, I'm heartbroken that they're leaving, but I love whether it's with him or not, I love that she is deciding not
Yes.
to set herself up to be lonely, right? To
Hmm.
be available for love.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a lot of it, right? A lot of it is just being putting yourself in position and not living out a story that like when you can see the end of a story, it's like when do you get into a new storyline? When do you develop a new storyline?
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
And so I think that by her even reaching out to him, it was
Yeah.
like, I'm willing to have a new story than the one that was kind of given to me.
Yeah. There's hope that she won't
Hmm.
end up alone and a lonely career woman. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. He wants
Yeah.
her to have the desires of her heart, Toy says. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah. Listen, I think I'm team Kojo. Like
Hmm.
I want them to end up together. I don't know why.
Let me tell you who she gonna end up
Because I
with.
don't want him to leave his home and I don't want her to leave her
I'm gonna
home.
tell you what happened. This is the Dear Edward season 3. Okay, this is what happens. Okay, she ends up with the Reverend. Okay, and then lo and behold, Kojo ends up back in the States, and she's like out having coffee, and she's just like, Kojo, what are you doing here? And she takes that wedding ring and she twists it around. And she's like, that's what's going to happen. And then it's going to be a whole kind of like, oh gosh, the love is rekindled. And then you've got some more drama. It's going to be another mess.
A mess in the making. Listen,
Yes.
the Reverend was quite all right with me.
Yeah.
He was quite all right with
She
me.
can't lose with either one of those. Okay. I'm just going to be real
Yeah,
honest.
yeah.
Those are two very good prospects.
Mhm, mhm. And
So
so
go ahead.
so let's talk about how this one talking about endings, right? So we're getting
Yes.
to season finales, and I don't know about you, but back in the day, season
Hmm.
finales were a much bigger deal to me than they are right now.
Hmm.
Um, there's so many things to me that have spoiled season finales because if you read a blog or two, you can find out that so and so's booked on another show, or
Yeah.
like like it. So the cliffhangers are like oh, that person's not coming back. Like you almost know the answer, or there was some issue and we know about the issue on the set. But
Mhm.
I used to love season finale cliffhangers. Like it's exciting to see the build up, and then is it going to resolve and all of that stuff. So I can feel the build up, right? Because the way that the episode ends is that Edward finally finds the letters.
Right.
And it's the last secret. It's the last
Yeah.
secret. It's the last thing that's out there that has been hidden from him. And he read them. And I will tell you the truth, because I was definitely emotionally invested. But the mama in me was like, you need to keep the letter with the envelope. Like, how we gonna know who sent that letter? How we gonna know who sent that letter? How you gonna put the letter with the envelope? And it took me a minute to
Oh my
stop thinking
God.
that. It took me a
Uh-huh.
minute to say, like, stop. I was like, you know what? They can match the handwriting, Cherie. Stop it. Like I had to stop it. But
Mhm.
that was what but man, him opening those letters and
Yeah.
seeing it and the questions they were asking,
Yeah.
like they just wanted to know what those last moments, like I don't know what response they wanted from him,
Right.
you know?
And did you expect the one letter of the guy who was like, you're like the crazy guy, the guy that you're a fraud, you're a liar, what your letters, like the letters that come from people who are not well? I did not expect that letter. I expected all the letters to be like, oh, you survived. Oh, this was my family member on the plane. I did not expect the letters from people who were just totally just not well. Do you
Yeah, I
remember
was
that one?
expecting a crazy one because I think
You
that
were?
Lacey, yeah, I think Lacey mentioned that some of these letters are crazy. Like I think she said some of them are, she mentioned something about them not all being loving, you know.
Oh, okay.
But so I wasn't surprised, but I didn't think that he was gonna pull those first. I just, I thought it was, the whole scene just had me like mind blown. Um she said the voices, right? And so how they actually show people showing up and speaking their letters. I want to be your friend.
Mhm.
I have three girls and their mom was on. I was just like, oh my gosh, they wanted the same thing that the people who had come into his circle. Like, just did you see him on the plane?
Yeah.
He was sitting in this seat. And it made me think, I just recently got off a plane. Would I even remember anybody on the plane? You know what I mean? To be able to say, oh, yeah, your person was in, oh, yeah, yeah, I remember them at the bathroom. Like, but they just wanted something from him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kwame said, I was not expecting someone to be ugly and hurtful.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
just kept thinking like Lacey is about to be big mad when she
But
finds
it's
out that he
honestly
got
not
those
his,
letters. It's
yeah,
not his,
it's not
it's
his
not
fault.
John's fault. It's not
She's going
John's,
to make
like
it
she could,
John's fault, though.
of course she is.
Yeah.
But we haven't even really talked about Lacey this episode. We will talk about her because I have some things to say about Lacey. Um, but yeah, she's gonna be real mad. But you know
Yeah.
what's starting to make sense to me now, and I'm okay. Work with me, help me to get this thought together. Back to the question in the beginning, right? Paper covers rock, right? And so the whole thing was that was attached to his survivor's guilt,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Paper Covers Rock is about him coming to terms with or starting to address the survivor's guilt. And I think
Yeah.
once John told him that, um, that the game was a binding agreement, and since you won, that is the way that things played out. I think it's kind of helping him to understand that, you know, not that it's, I'm not saying that he's going to be totally okay that he survived his brother, but in a way it starts to help him to deal with that survivor's guilt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also
Yeah,
thinking
because
about
for
his,
sure, if all you
mhm,
think is it should have been
yeah,
him, like I should,
yeah,
he had the girlfriend, he was cool, he was, I don't, he idolized his brother. So it's absolutely like he should be here. So I hope that penetrated from him. Anjave said, but back to counseling because I was traumatized by hearing those letters, right? That these are all of these feelings within him. Like they need some, you need support processing a lot,
yeah,
like sometimes when you're going through a lot in your life and you know, the part of you that I can handle it, I can handle it, I can pray about this, I can work with this. But getting some support, because somebody can kind of, who's not all up in it, right? They can
Mhm.
have a point of view to share with you that will help you see yourself differently, help you see your situation differently. And we're seeing a little boy who's just swimming in everything. He's swimming, and literally back to where we started almost, right? Where he
Mhm.
was losing little bits and then lost everything. And then he had gained some stuff. Now he's losing little bits and he's lost everything.
Yeah.
Right now, it's like Lacey was the last little string. Lacey and John were the last little strings of trust that he had. And they had been hiding these letters from him.
Yeah. Yeah. I do. Yeah. I didn't think about that, but that is a point that he might feel betrayed in a way. But when I saw those letters and I kept thinking about the whole episode about how lonely he must feel, I was like,
Mhm.
wow, maybe he won't feel so alone now until that one jacked up letter happened. And I was just like, well, there's that,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
right. I know there are more of those in that bunch,
Yeah.
like, yeah, I feel like the end of that episode was just gut wrenching. And I thought that they had put up the last episode. I was like, I'm gonna watch it. I said, no, I don't. If I watch it, I know I want to talk about it, and I don't want to do it before, but it's not up yet.
It's not up.
Um, yeah, yeah. I was eager to see it, but yeah. Wait a minute, so we're running out of time though. You
Okay, we
wanted to
got to
talk
talk about Lacey
about
and Linda.
Lacey. Mhm.
Yeah, Lacey and Linda, and just the whole idea that, and I know this is a show that was written, and these things happen because the writers thought about how we have this character, Lacey, who has had issues giving birth and being pregnant, and then she meets this other woman who is pregnant and all of that, right? So just of so that was kind of written into the story, but to people that that happens to in life, where it just so happens that things kind of synchronistically happen that way, like the odds of her struggling with being a parent and giving birth, and then to have to go through what she went through watching Linda, you know, give birth, and thinking
Yeah,
that the child didn't, like, I thought that the child did. First I thought Linda died, then I thought, oh wait, did the baby die? And then it was just like seeing all those emotions happening
yeah,
on Lacey's face, like, whoo, that was a lot. I felt bad for her.
yeah,
Yeah, with
yeah,
that.
yeah. I think she's struck. She's completely triggered, but I don't know if so. Just in the idea of what ended for her, right? Like, was there an ending for Lacey?
Hmm.
Um, because they didn't let her in to see the baby, right? With her, remember, it was just the mom that could
Right.
go into the ICU. So I don't know where this ended for her. Like, maybe this is what, like, as one of the more central characters, maybe this is what we're gonna see next week. Is what's going on with Lacey. I felt like, how difficult must that be? Because I don't think that she ever carried a baby. I don't know how long she carried the babies
Hmm.
before she miscarried, but to be in the hospital and to be bearing witness, and I would be thinking about how I left her in the bed by herself, and
Yeah.
and I know that I would be running that kind of story, like, why didn't I see the signs? And she's already seen herself as an inadequate mother,
Hmm.
and here's proof again, right? that
Yeah.
that I didn't catch it. So yeah, I'm concerned for Lacey. Like, it's Edward is falling apart at the seams. And the grown-up woman that she was caring for almost died. Like,
Yeah.
it's a lot happening for her. A lot happening with her.
Yeah.
Um, and she doesn't have anybody to stand on. I am
Mhm.
glad that she sent Edward to her husband.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm still married. Like, like, he's still your uncle and I'm still married. Like, let me just remember that. But Lacey, 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 I
Poor
don't love
Lacey.
her,
You're right.
but I
I
felt bad
was,
for her.
yeah, I felt bad for her, but I was really, she got me started in the principal's office when she was like, "Well, what are you gonna do about it?" I'm like, "Lady." You're the guardian. What are you gonna do about
What are
it?
you gonna do about it, right?
So maybe this will be the end of Lacey blaming everyone else for issues that she needs to deal with.
If only. If
Uh,
only. If only.
mm,
I'm gonna tell you what, I'm excited about the end of the season and to see where these characters are in their healing journey. Um, we all are going through a
mhm.
healing journey on some level, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's what makes this show so special is that, I've never experienced a loss like what these characters have experienced, but loss is loss.
Yep.
And we all go through a process of healing.
Mhm.
And so I appreciate, like I said, Jason Katims is, that cathartic, deal with your feelings kind of writer. Like I always feel like I get to deal with my feelings, and this show does not disappoint. Does not disappoint.
Yeah. Such a beautiful show.
Yeah.
All
Mhm.
right, y'all. Well,
So
that
I said, leave
is
Lacey alone.
leave Lacey alone. All right, we're gonna leave Lacey alone. So next week, Lacey will have a moment that will be redemptive in some way.
Redeemed. Should be
Yeah,
redeemed.
she'll be redeemed. But thank you all so much for joining us again for another episode of Conscious Conversations, Dear Edward edition, where we deepen the conversation. We go deep. We pull things apart and like, what do you think that meant? Right. And we expand our consciousness by talking about the shows that I get to be a part of. And yeah, I'm so grateful that I got a chance to be a part of this show and to go on this journey and then to talk about it with you all. So please join us again next week for the final episode of Dear Edward. Well, the final episode of Conscious Conversations, Dear Edward edition, because Friday, in just a couple days, you'll be able to see the final episode and see how all things turn out. With these characters that we have grown to love. And I won't even say
Mhm.
hate. I don't hate any characters, but love and be
Me
a little bit
neither.
annoyed with. We're family. We're
Yeah.
like family with these characters, right?
Yeah.
Because that's, family can be like that sometimes, right? But until next time, be well and see ya. Bye,
Yeah.
Instagram.
Bye,
All
everybody.
right. And bye, Facebook and YouTube.